Think about this country. What are the biggest problems you think we need to fix?
Oh, geez. Biggest problems.
What comes to mind when you think about how things aren't going very well?
There's a lot of problems.
Yeah. Name one.
Okay.
So what are the biggest problems that need fixing today?
That's what we want to know, and that's the topic of our first episode. Not because we want to focus on the negative, but because in order to solve a problem, you have to recognize that there is one. And you know where I got that?
Where?
The newsroom. We have to talk about what's going wrong in order to focus on how we can fix it. Regular people on the street. I walked around New York City and asked them, what do you think are the biggest problems we need to fix? They had a lot of interesting things to say. So here, take a look. Take a look.
My problem, tuition, it's too high. A lot of my friends dropped out because they couldn't afford college.
Political gridlock in Washington's pretty big. Just not getting anything done. So
Political divisiveness?
yeah, that would be one. Yeah. I don't know, poverty, social, economic equality, things like that.
Do these affect you individually or just
No.
in general? No. What affects you? What problems are out there affecting you?
I don't have many, to be honest.
That's good to acknowledge.
Oh, can I do my eyebrows first?
Sure.
I think we are not prepared for how fast AI is growing. It's kind of scary that it could take over our jobs, like the workforce, and even the military, those jobs. At one point, we're going to be able to control our guns from a machine. We won't have to be in the field.
And that's one of the top problems you think of when you're
Yeah,
lying
I
awake
think our technology is going to outbeat us. Like the dinosaurs became extinct. I think we're going to be extinct, and that's going to take over.
I think what's interesting about what she's saying is throughout history, we've all had fears like that of, this new thing could mean X. While it's true, sometimes it does lead to something that's negative. It's impressive how many times people work through it, whether it's, Malthus thought that England's population couldn't get above a certain level, and now they've tripled it or more, or what advances in the railroad would do to civilization
or any of the media innovations that happen.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
always a fear.
And I get it, right? Especially with this, like she's saying, because it could take over tons of jobs.
Can I read you a quote?
Yeah.
There's a guy named Kai-Fu Lee who said that AI will increasingly replace repetitive jobs. He says AI will displace about 40% of jobs in the world, which is higher than I thought.
Yeah. But the thing that's interesting to me about it is that every time we have a way of coming up with something else.
And so you're saying that from your perspective because you're maybe not feeling the heat and the pressure of a robot taking your job.
Yeah,
but someone
that's
who
true.
is feeling that is probably thinking, how can we avoid things like self-checkout lines if I'm a cashier?
Mm-hmm.
The truth is, though, in my opinion, I should say, innovation is inevitable and you can embrace it, or you can fight back against it and just wait for it to take over.
Yeah.
Might as well prepare now.
Because it's coming for you.
I'm sorry, I got a piece of sand in my eye.
Oh, that's a problem. What's going wrong?
Everything.
Everything.
The government, the president, we don't have somebody in charge who is really thinking everything through in the right way.
Biggest problems in our country are probably that politics exists overall. I feel like there's no correction at this point.
Oh, we're past the point of return, you think?
It's kind of impossible to please everyone. If people weren't so selfish, I guess, and thought a little bit more about everyone else, everything would be a little bit better.
Do you honestly think we're past the point of correcting it, or do you think the next generation will figure it out?
I think there'll be correction and there'll be betterment, but I'm not sure that we'll ever get to the point where we're truly in a solid spot.
Well, on that note, have a good day.
GDP, debt, it's a cesspool of problems all in pockets all over the country. It's not going to get any better either.
Never, you think?
Well, if we keep going the way we're going, it's not going to get any better.
What's one thing you think might fix the trend we're on?
Love and compassion.
So we just heard two answers about politics, and I think politics by its nature is divisive. But I think one of the benefits of a show like this is we can dive into what's dividing us and find that we have a lot more in common than we thought.
Yeah.
These guys don't seem too optimistic about it, but I'm hoping the next generation of statesmen out there, I hope you guys find a better way to show that politics can be for the common good, even coming at it from different angles.
The first clip, he was basically describing Alexander Tytler came up with this cycle, and it goes through kind of what he was describing, you know, where it ends in people seeking power and money and whatever. But what's interesting about, at least here in America, the system that we've set up is it has some checks and balances on that. They have been kind of skewed a little bit, but I don't feel like it's necessarily past the point of no return. And hopefully, as we are able to go in deeper on ideas and hear out all sides, it will help. It'll help with that.
The fact that people are even talking in those terms is alarming, though.
Yeah, I agree.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I heard stuff about global warming, half the world being, in deep water. Polar bears and penguins, the lives of polar bears and penguins declining. That's an issue.
There's families that live on reservations who are actually suffering a great cause. Pipelines should not run across Native American burial grounds, nor should treaties be broken. We're being violated on a huge scale. I'm pretty sure that the government would not want, if the tables were turned, for a Native American to run a pipeline through Washington's grave or Edison's grave. It's not a race thing. It has nothing to do with race. It has to do with the preservation of land, culture, and people. We should preserve, our 52 state tribes.
I think when reality TV came into our lives, this old DNA of watching people fail and suffer and take delight in that brought down our humanity a little bit. And so I think it's distraction. I think it's cell phone addiction. I think it's deciding to interact with everybody on levels of virtual reality instead of face-to-face like this. I think we're really losing this. So I think our attention spans are the worst problem. I think the fact that we are not being disciplined enough to keep focus on reading like an old classic novel, of associating with history, with art, to go to a museum and actually look at a painting for more than 2 seconds and not just Instagram it and like really connect with that painting. So to me, it's a little bit loss of our humanity. And when that happens, all those other problems get worse. Sexism, racism, ignorance, all of that is perpetuated by like this thing in our phone, and we just Google everything. So I think that is a big problem.
So you mentioned a lot of things, and you see how a lot of them stem from just being isolated and distracted, and the human connection ability has gone down.
Yeah.
And I think you touched on some Schadenfreude in there. This is a big answer that made a lot of sense to me. I think I feel a lot of what she touched on there.
Why?
Because distraction, I felt it in myself. I choose the lower road a lot more than I thought I would at this point in my life.
Yeah.
Like what to do with my free time, things like that. Jared, if you didn't know, gets up at 6 a.m. and reads a bunch of names I think he's probably making up. I often picture what I would do with my Friday night, 200 years ago.
Yeah.
If you had candles, you might read. You might knit yarn.
Yeah.
You might play the guitar by the fireside, but we might go to the tavern, I guess. There's all sorts of ways to waste your time.
Yeah.
But now I feel like there are so many options that I don't know if we're adapting well just yet.
Yeah, and on one level, I totally agree with her, where there is a level of humanity that comes from reading and from taking the time to dive deep into a topic, and it gives you confidence. It helps you understand and sympathize with other people better. But on the other hand, I feel like it's easy to, like you had said, what would we have done in the 1800s? It's easy to romanticize that time as well and be like, oh, there was something about that was better than now. Mm-hmm. There's so much that is good about now that helps us in society in a way that we didn't have back then, and people had to be way more worried back then about how am I going to live, and we don't have to worry about that as much, so we can focus on bigger ideas.
It might just be that no matter what era you live in, the tools at your disposal are not to blame. It's your choices that you use those tools for.
Lack of community, lack of family cohesiveness. I think the reason why the suicide rate has jumped 30% in the last year is because people are lacking human connection. People have forgotten how to be friends in this culture. They've forgotten what family means. They've forgotten what it means to have community. Everyone's very walking around with headphones, looking at their phones. They're not talking to each other. They're talking at each other. Everyone's living their own little, reality TV show, and they think they're so awesome. And the problem is the big corporations, feed on that, and they feed fear into people. You're not good enough. You're not good looking enough. You have to have makeup, and it's all nonsense. It's all complete and utter nonsense. So that's what I think is the biggest problem in this country, is that people have forgotten what it means to be human. They've forgotten what it means to be alive because they're so busy working too hard for too little because they've got their wage slave.
So you say they've forgotten, meaning they once knew?
Well, sure. A couple of years ago, people had neighbors and they talked to their neighbors. They went to their problems. They went to neighbors with their problems. They didn't hire psychotherapists. They talked to their friends. You really have to leave America for a solid year, live in Africa, live in India, wherever, and then come back. And you see all this through totally different eyes. You see how sarcastic people are, how demeaning they are, how they're jealous of their friend's success. They don't encourage each other. They're all like, everyone's it's like, what's in it for me? What's in it for me?
I don't think our kids today can look back at the end of a year and say, I am a much better person at the end of the year than I was at the beginning of the year. Okay? If you can't do that, you're not improving yourself.
Money.
Money?
Yeah.
In what way?
Because everybody's just hungry for money. So.
Okay, so the love of money.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So greed?
Greed.
What drives you, if not money?
My family.
Family?
I don't know, man. I'm just happy all the time. I wake up and I'm just in a good mood. I'm just happy. I don't care what's in my bank account.
I think the world's biggest problem is that people are not willing to accept each other's idea. I mean, I don't like your idea, but I'm still capable of accepting it. But most people don't have that thing. They want to change everybody's mind like they are thinking. And if everybody would accept, even if they are not thinking the same, it wouldn't be so many problems.
Or at least listen more, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they think I'm right and no one else can be right because I'm right.
Yes, and I want everybody to think like me, but that's not working. I just have to accept and make a compromise.
That's a good answer.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for you. Is there such thing as objective truth?
I feel like yes, there is, but not in as many ways as we think that there is. There are these things that I hold, like that I think, that I have an answer on, but the reality is someone else has all kinds of experiences and knowledge that I don't on the same topic, and I can learn from them, and they can learn from me. And when when anyone chooses to shut them down, we've sacrificed an opportunity to learn more and to grow.
It feels very unnatural to think, no, I already know the answer, but I still have to listen to you.
Yeah.
But apparently that's more important than we think it is.
Yeah, in order to understand what the whole elephant is, what we're really seeing, we need to listen to each other.
What's the country's biggest problem?
Biggest problem?
Yeah.
People that don't give Trump a chance. If they let the guy do his job, rather than try 24/7 to get him out of his job, maybe the country would be better off.
Communication.
Communication?
Yes.
So we're not communicating well?
Right.
What could we do better?
Like, it's a lot of misunderstanding about the media, because media brainwash people. Because media, people don't get real news from the true things from the media. That's why people are confused.
Where do you get your news?
So we don't just watch, news from like CNN and Fox News. We got news from outside.
Okay.
Do you understand? So like we get worldwide because we can compare like who's right and who's wrong when you compare. But from people, I have a lot of friends. They're just confused.
Yeah.
They have no idea what's going on behind the screen. The real news they don't understand. Because it's not their fault. Because the media. If there was no bad news, if there was no war in the Middle East, the media will never make money. It's their attention. They're trying to get attention, public attention. It's always going to be bad news. It's just like everything when the bad things happen, people always like, oh, let me see what's going on. It's like you put your mind to it. This is their job. They want to put all the fake news and get people attention. This is what they do for a living.
He touched on a few things here. One of the first people we talked to was an expert about where we should get our news, how we should vet it, and that's such a big topic too. I mean, you can't just talk in an echo chamber. You can't just look up things with people that you agree with, and that includes media outlets.
Yeah.
The Democratic Party.
The Democratic Party is the biggest problem our country is facing.
It's the biggest problem. To me, the Democratic Party have taken over where ISIS stopped.
Really?
Yeah, when Trump stopped ISIS, the Democratic Party have taken that up and trying to destroy America. They're just doing it in a different way.
The Democratic Party are trying to destroy America, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Wow.
Their policies is destroying America. Because their policies is the problem with all this racism and gender, whatever. Yeah, all that's they destroy. The Democratic Party is destroying people. They're destroying people's reputation. Going back to the 4th grade, talking about what you did in the 4th grade. That's ridiculous, and it's really sad. It is. It's a little in both parties. I am a conservative, but I'm a Christian guy. My beliefs carries me more to the Republican Party. If I had to pick a side, it'd be the Republican Party. I wouldn't pick the Democratic.
Actually, I think it's the divide between people. If you're not in agreement with them, you're not American enough, and something's wrong with you, and you're not a patriot. You're not allowed to have a mind of your own if you don't agree with.
In your lifetime, have you ever felt as much of a divide as we have today?
Never, no. And I've been Republican, I've been a Democrat. I don't think it has anything to do with that anymore. It really doesn't. I think people are just, they're just so into themselves and they're in fear of things. And
It's funny, we've actually heard that answer quite a bit, so it almost feels like everyone's feeling that about other people. I wonder if it's an inward thing that we need to work on individually.
Absolutely, it always has to start with us. I agree with you.
Honestly, I would say racism.
Racism?
Yeah.
What makes you say
and
that?
Poverty.
Poverty?
Yeah, there's a lot of poor people everywhere.
When you think of racism, how do you see that manifest in your life?
In my life? I mean, honestly, I don't pay attention to it. Yeah. But
it's the biggest problem, you think?
Yeah, that's a big problem.
For the white people to know that the black guys are here to stay and are going nowhere, and then try to see how they can make the system to work for them. And also the black people to stop playing the blame game. They have to put their acts together and try to get a life. They need to change the paradigm. If they don't change the narrative, it will be same old, same old.
So that one's a really interesting. It's obviously a hot button topic that for right now, but it's one that I'm excited to learn more about. We had two kind of different viewpoints right there from people, and I don't have a lot of answers on race issues, and so I'm excited to explore it more and learn more about it.
This is one area where we're going to get a wide array of viewpoints, and we're going to listen a lot more than we talk.
More like understanding of each other's culture. You know what I'm saying? More like understanding more discussion about each culture's language and stuff like that. If we have more understanding, we have more unity, I think there'll be better, the world will be better. What Trump is doing is just segregating everybody, you know what I'm saying? He's pointing like that, so it's not good. I feel like we need to talk more, we need to come together more, talk more and just share each other's values and stuff like that. Then I feel like disconnection, social media is not connecting us at all.
The biggest problem probably being, segregation, I think, especially in the school system and, in a lot of areas, especially growing around in New York and stuff like that. There's a lot of gentrification, especially, just seeing both ends. I don't know, I just wish things were a lot more equal, especially with Trump in office. I know the other day I was watching and there weren't too many black people in office. So, I mean, that was one thing.
People having a misconception about Donald Trump.
What's that misconception?
That he's no good. He's not for the best interest of America, when blatantly Obama did us filthy. I see Donald Trump's vision, and I agree with him totally. And I'm from the hood, I'm ghetto. And I'm not a white. I'm not rich. But I tell the truth, I think Donald Trump is the best thing that can happen for America right now. A lot of people get on Trump about the children with the immigration and all of that. I'm not stupid. Obama deported more immigrants than any in the history of any president in the United States of America. All that was the aftermath of his work. Trump come, we have no terrorist attacks here. I feel safer than ever. The police not killing blacks at an all-time high. And he's creating jobs. The stock market been high as ever. Don't tell me what Donald Trump ain't doing. Tell me what he is doing.
You think he's the cause of all those good things?
Yes, Obama was a human being. Don't get me wrong. As a man, I love him. As a man, I think he's one of the best human beings as a man besides Jesus Christ and Prophet Muhammad lived. But as a president, he did a poor job. Trump is the worst as a man. But as a president, he's doing a damn good job.
It'd be Trump.
What is that?
Trump. That's all I ever hear about. Everything on Facebook, internet, literally, it's all I ever hear about.
And what's the problem?
That he's not being a very good president. Like he does, like everybody's saying he's either stupid or doesn't know what he's doing, or a lot of it needs to be fixed probably about him because he's the man behind a lot of things right now. He's making a lot of decisions for a lot of people.
I'm very confused for the Donald Trump. He did a very great job, but all the media is so against him. It's just unbelievable, But he's still doing his job. That is, on one part, is very good for the democracy. So people have the free speech, right? But on the other hand, I always think for the past several presidential election, right, when the election is ending, we united. So we are all together. We support the president and we do our job together. Not for this time. This is, I feel so shocked.
People have been talking about Donald Trump since long before he even ran for president, but it's just nonstop. But he is the president, and he does have a cult of personality now, and I'm curious how much we should give attention to one man, even to someone as important as the president. I'm excited to talk to some people we have that can give us some perspective there.
I agree with that. The one thing that is really interesting is parties tend to give tons of credit to the president for things that they don't necessarily have power over. Like the economy is booming, or the gas prices is a great example. Gas prices are so high. It doesn't have a lot to do with the president, but we give them credit for that. And the negative side of that is, well, now when gas prices are too high, then it's the president's fault. Or when they're, if you take credit for something, you have to be willing to take blame for it as well.
It's like, it's inauguration day and the unemployment rate is at this.
Yeah.
And we're, from day one.
Yeah.
Or, 3.5 years into his term, you might say, that's a hangover from the last administration.
Whereas more to your point, there were tons of bills and laws that were put into place, and there were tons of agencies that were at work to make all of these things happen. And to focus just on the one president makes it so that it's a lot scarier when we have one person in office, and because we believe they have all the power when they don't necessarily.
I would say just the blatant disregard for any kind of higher power type thing.
Okay.
Just people thinking they can do their own thing, kind of.
Secularism?
Yeah,
secularism.
Right.
Yeah.
We're not Bible bashers, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to hit people up, upside the head with a Bible or anything like that. But I think that it would be a good thing to see America turn back to some of those foundings.
If we had more reliance on a higher power, and it doesn't have to be your flavor of a God.
Sure, just anything, yeah.
What would improve?
I think generally speaking, morality goes up. I mean, I believe Jesus is Lord, and we live our lives out of that mindset. But it generally it makes you be a more moral person, because you're not just doing whatever you want to do.
I think it's hope. There's a lot of people that don't have hope. They just go through life thinking that they can just spread their genes and have babies and die, and that Hebrews 6:19. We all have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure.
Yeah.
And that people have hope in something. It gives people energy to live and eagerness to do stuff.
一番大切な問題は
北朝鮮。そうね、北朝鮮。
I think actually North Korea.
North Korea?
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem?
I think so.
Tell me more. Why is that such a big problem, do you think?
Because their thinking is a little bit different other country, and but they have a power is biggest in the world.
It's from Abunai.
I thought so, Abunai.
Okay, so are you from Palestine?
I'm from Israel. No,
Israel, okay.
there's no Palestine.
Okay.
There's only Israel.
Let me ask you again, okay? What is the biggest problem that we need to solve?
America.
Yeah.
Well, for me as an Israeli, is what important for me, not what so much important for America. For me, it's important that Trump might find a solution for the conflict in the Middle East.
In the Middle East?
Yeah, and I think so far he's doing a very good job. And the most important is putting the whole world into its place, into the right place.
What solution do you hope that we find in the Middle East?
Well, I don't know, it's either 2 states or 1 state, but I leave it to the politician to decide which is better.
Okay, the borders. That's the biggest problem we need to solve right here. Keeping savvy characters from coming in to this country, treating dirt like they did in their country, and keeping guys like me down for getting a second job or having a first job, because there's so many foreigners here, they all taking the jobs from the American people. So that's one problem you can solve. Find out where they're coming from, where they record, what they do in their country to come here.
Right now, as we're filming this, we're in the middle of a government shutdown, and immigration and border security is usually a divisive issue, but right now it's really coming to a head.
Mm-hmm.
So we definitely need to get to a little bit deeper in how we can avoid this situation.
Yeah, and I feel like there is a lot of posturing and talking about why fear-mongering, I guess, is about the impacts that immigration has instead of rational discussion about it. And so I'm interested to dive in deeper with that and find more of the reality, from hearing from experts and listening to both sides to try and find out, okay, what's really happening here and how does it impact us and what's good policy for that.
So there's one more clip in these interviews that we did. This is just an hour and a half of talking to people on the street. I think we're going to do this a lot more, actually. Yeah. And this happens to be the last one we did of the night, and it was probably my favorite one.
We don't love each other.
We don't love each other?
Enough.
Oh, enough, okay.
Yeah. You should love everybody for what they are.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Not enough love.
What do you
Good
think
answer.
that's the biggest problem?
I think that's probably pretty close. A little bit more love, right? Yeah. I think that would solve a lot of other problems if you had more communication, more love, and more tolerance.
It starts with love.
Yeah.
So more love.
More love.
Yeah.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. As I think more about the range of topics these people have touched on and all the others that they might have mentioned, it really all boils down to that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the takeaway I've had, at least so far. It's hard, but I really think what I said there, a lot more problems could be solved by just remembering we're all human beings, we're all on the same side when it comes down to it, and love is what's going to help us get over some of these unsurmountable obstacles.
Yeah, I agree. It's even if you just look at it from love as like one aspect of love is respect, and if we have more respect for each other, we'll be able to come to better solutions. Another thing I think about when I think of what she said, if we have more love, not just for other people but for ourselves, I think that that with that would come a lot more confidence and a lot less anger. Where you feel threatened by everything, and I think that goes a long way.
Yeah. Well, did any of those answers stick out to you? Do you have any thoughts about what our biggest problem is? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and we're going to keep going and asking people from all walks of life, what do you think we need to solve first? So that we don't just keep complaining, but we actually take action to make the world even better.